All right, let's dive in. We're talking about langGraph today, and honestly, it's a framework that's really changing the game for AI applications. You know that feeling when you're working with an AI and it just gives you a one-and-done answer? Super static. Well, if you've ever wanted to build something that can actually think, something that can reason, iterate, and collaborate with you, then you're going to want to stick around. So let's kick things off with a pretty fundamental question. How do you actually build an AI that can, well, that can think in circles? And no, I don't mean it just gets stuck in some kind of pointless loop. I'm talking about an AI that can genuinely iterate on a problem. It tries something, refines its approach, and this is the big one. It remembers everything you've talked about. That's the core problem, the big challenge that langGraph is designed to tackle.
To really get why this is such a big deal, it helps to take a quick trip back in time. It all started with these really brittle, rule-based systems. Then, in the 90s, we had the statistical revolution. Machines were finally learning from data. Fast forward to the 2010s, and boom, the deep learning era hits with these incredibly powerful LLMs. But here's the twist. All that raw power created a whole new problem: control. How do you get these amazing models to actually perform complex, multi-step tasks without going off the rails? And that's exactly where we are today.
Okay, so here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to cover what langGraph actually is. Then, we'll break down its core building blocks. After that, we'll get our hands dirty and build a simple graph to see how it works. And finally, we'll get into the really cool stuff, the advanced features that let you build those super intelligent AI agents. All right, first things first, what is langGraph? Well, at its very core, it's a framework for building intelligent, stateful language applications. And I really want you to hang on to that word stateful. It's the key to everything. It basically means you're building apps that have a memory. So the big idea here is that you're not just writing a boring linear script that runs from top to bottom. No, you're actually building a graph. Think of it like a flowchart or a mind map. This structure is what gives you that fine-grained control over how information flows, and more importantly, how the app's memory, its state, gets passed around and updated with each step. And this whole graph thing is powered by a few absolutely key features. You've got statefulness, that's what gives the AI its memory. Then you have cycles and loops, and that's how we get that thinking in circles thing we talked about earlier. There's also streaming support, which is just crucial for stuff like chatbots, where you need real-time responses. And the whole thing is extensible, meaning you can build your own custom pieces to fit whatever you're working on. Okay, so let's peel back the layers and look at the fundamental components. When you're building with langGraph, it really boils down to three main concepts you need to know. First up, you've got your nodes. The easiest way to think about these is as the workers on your team. Each node is a single unit that does a specific job. And that job could be anything, really. It could be a simple function, it could be calling out to an API, it could be running a big old machine learning model, or it could even be a step that pauses and asks the human for input. Okay, so if the nodes are your workers, the next step are the edges. And these are basically the pathways that connect your workers. They define the flow, where the data and control go. An edge dictates exactly what happens after a node is done with its job. Does the process go to node B next? Or maybe it needs to split and go to node C and D at the same time. The edges define that logic. And finally, the concept that holds this whole thing together, the state. This is the big one. It's the graph's shared memory. The state is literally the current condition of your entire application. It's how a chatbot remembers what you said 3 messages ago. Without this, you don't get those coherent, context-aware conversations. It's absolutely crucial. And it's really important to get the difference here. A stateless node is super simple. Its output only depends on what you give it right now. Think of a function that just capitalizes text. It doesn't remember anything. But a stateful node is totally different. It holds on to information. A great example is a counter. Every time it runs, its output changes because it remembers its last number. And that ability to remember is what unlocks all the complex stuff. All right, enough with the theory. It's great, but let's see how these pieces actually snap together in the real world. We're going to walk through a simple, practical pipeline right now. Let's use a classic example, a sentiment analysis pipeline. So, step 1, we get some input text. The first worker, our tokenized node, jumps in and splits that text into individual words. Then it passes that along to the next worker, the vectorized node, which turns those words into numbers that a computer can actually work with. After that, a classify node takes over, looks at those numbers, and predicts the sentiment. And boom, out comes the final answer. See? It's just a simple, straight line from one worker to the next. And the really cool part is how simple this is to set up in code. You literally define each step, tokenize, vectorize, and so on, as separate nodes. Then you just add an edge between them. You're basically saying, hey graph, take the output from the tokenized node and feed it directly into the vectorized node. You're explicitly drawing the roadmap for your data's entire journey. It's super clear. But look, these straight line pipelines are just the beginning. The real magic, the real power of langGraph isn't in these simple flows. It's in what happens when you go beyond them. So let's dive into that.
So here's the deal. To build something that feels like a real agent, you need more than just a simple A to B to C assembly line, right? A truly intelligent agent has to be able to look at a situation, decide what to do, try something out, check if it worked, and then, critically, loop back and try something else if it didn't. In other words, it needs to be able to think. And this is where the advanced features in langGraph really start to shine. With cycles, you can build those reasoning loops we just talked about. With conditional edges, you can let the graph itself decide which path to take based on the current situation. You can even build in solid error handling or create checkpoints where a human has to step in and give the okay. This is how you move from static scripts to truly dynamic and responsive AI. And this isn't just my take on it. The source material really hammers this home. It says that this ability to create cyclical, iterative workflows is precisely what makes langGraph perfect for the really hard stuff. We're talking complex dialogue systems or AI that has to reason its way through massive knowledge bases. Okay, so we've got the basic building blocks, we've got the advanced tools, so what can we actually build with all this? The short answer? Agents. If you really break it down, a classic AI agent is always running a loop that's built on three fundamental parts. Those three parts are perception, that's just gathering info from the world; decision-making, where it thinks about that info and picks what to do next; and finally, action, where it actually goes and does the thing. And what's so cool is that langGraph gives you the perfect framework to build out that exact perceive, decide, act loop. And you can see this play out in so many real-world applications. Take conversational agents or chatbots. For them, state management and cycles are everything. That's their memory, that's their context. Or think about complex AI simulations. The decision-making logic lets you model agents that can interact in really complex, unpredictable ways. In every one of these cases, langGraph is the backbone that manages the dynamic, stateful flow of information. Which really brings us to the big takeaway here. langGraph isn't just another library you can import. It's more like a new way of thinking about building AI. It's the blueprint, the scaffolding you need to create apps that can actually reason, remember, and act in those cyclical ways that we normally associate with real intelligence. So look, the framework is here. The tools to build truly agentic AI are more accessible right now than they have ever been. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build with it? Thanks for joining me for this explainer.